amazed with the more when people present the ideology of messiness and chaos and they read their speeches, the more the ideology of openness is articulated, the more closed it is, of course, and the more people speak about transparency, the more opaque they are. So anyway, having been so kind to my previous speakers, Jemima, very kind, I wish she'd kept on her pink outfit. Why'd you put the green on? Oh. Well, anyway, Jemima said that social media made order out of chaos. So what you just heard was chaos. Jemima, Stowe, and Stefana, they're all saying entirely different things, completely contradictory things, or at least seemingly contradictory things. First of all, we had Stefana, who said that in this increasingly fragmented world, in a world in which we don't live near our loved ones, where people's communities have been blown up and destroyed, we retreat into media to only talk to a tiny circle of friends, our loved ones, the 4 or 5 people in the world we are most intimate with. That may be true. She's an excellent researcher. I have no reason to disagree with her statistical analysis. Then we had Stowe Boyd, who argued that we are increasingly living in a social media world where everything is social, where we're living on the internet, to quote Jeff Jarvis, who was here last year, where everything we do on the internet is watched, from Facebook to Twitter to these geolocation services to websites like the Huffington Post, where we're supposed to wear metaphorical badges socially to analyze what we've seen. Everything is social. In fact, Stowe introduces a new, I don't know if is it your word? Stowe introduces a word called publicy, which reflects the death of privacy in this social media world. So everything is lived externally. We're turned inside out from our traditional industrial forefathers. The notion of privacy is done away with, and we have this new concept of publicy. He says, by default, everything becomes public in the social media world. So we have that. We have then this ubiquity of the social, according to Stowe. And then we have my friend Jemima, the open source lady who reads out her speech. What is she telling us? What's her ideology? Everyone, of course, has an ideology except for me, because I'm the person who puts the thing together. I'm the controller. So what does Jemima say? What's the core of her message? She says that we need to be ourselves. What, of course, Jemima is articulating is an early 21st century cult of libertarianism, or a cult of the individual. The idea that we need to somehow discover ourselves and then live lives which reflect that self. She gives us 2 examples of people who have lived themselves. Barack Obama, the current president of the United States, who she implies has generated a lot of other little people who have lived themselves to create a big person, Barack Obama, who lives himself. And then Craig Newmark, the head of Craigslist, who also lives himself. She didn't mention, of course, the fact that while Craig Newmark was living himself and giving away media for free, he single-handedly, perhaps by accident, but nonetheless single-handedly destroyed mainstream media, throwing tens of thousands of journalists out of work, all for living himself. Very noble, of course. So what do we have here? We have three things. We have this cult of the individual. We have Stowe's notion of social ubiquity. And we have Stefana's theory of the retreat into the intimate, private realm of our loved ones. What's going on here? I tend to be most sympathetic within these three speakers of Stefana. What she says is, of course, we need to look outside ourselves, and she's absolutely right. What is going on here has nothing to do with social media. What is going on here has nothing to do with finding ourselves or any of these other libertarian mantras. What's going on here is a fundamental restructuring of capitalism. What's going on is an increasing weakening of traditional industrial institutions, more and more mobility, more and more tendency towards an economy and a socio-cultural realm of intense competition. What Stowe didn't say about Twitter in particular was its profound inequalities. What Stowe didn't say was in the midst of this supposed social realm, we are all dramatically and intensely competing for competition. So in Jemima's language, being ourselves actually means being ourselves more noisily, more successfully, more seductively than someone else. And that, of course, accounts why some of us have more followers on Twitter than others. I'm proud of the fact that I have 13,000. How many do you have, Stowe? So I'm bigger than you. And I'm A.J. Keen, by the way. So what's going on here? In all seriousness, we are living through a profound shift in the nature of things. Not in the nature of individual identity, not in the nature of culture, but in the way we organize. We're seeing the weakening of traditional institutions. When Jemima says we need to be ourselves, it's not because we really want to be ourselves. It's because we need to be ourselves, because we're losing our jobs at big companies, because we're entering what Daniel Pink, the excellent Washington writer, says is the free agent nation. And Twitter and Facebook and the rest of the social media world reflects that social media nation. Within social media, then, we have more and more intense competition amongst individuals. Within social media, that radical competitiveness is actually making us more fragile, more anxious, which explains, I think, Stefana's analysis, which explains why, on the one hand, we're all on Facebook, why 500 million of us are on Facebook, why we're all on Twitter, peddling ourselves, trying to make ourselves bigger than somebody else. But at the same time, we're retreating, as Stefana says, through the telephone, through email, to confessing to the people we most trust, we most love. Because this world is not a good world. It's not a world where we are really true to be ourselves. In fact, the very notion of being ourselves is an ideological construct, which most of us, even if we wanted to, don't know how to be ourselves. So this competitive world of social media is the most unsocial thing we could ever imagine. What it reflects is an increasingly radicalized individualism. Now, I'm not a Luddite, and I'm not a technological determinist. I'm not blaming Twitter or Facebook or any of the other technologies for this. We have to understand these shifts in profound structural terms, but we cannot misunderstand them. We have to come up, and we're in Berlin, the capital of Germany, the country in the world which provided the rest of the world with unified theory. So we need unified theory. If Marx was around today, he would make sense of it. If Hegel was around today, he would make sense of it. We cannot be distracted by the nonsense coming out of Paris, the tendency to break things down, to create chaos, messiness. Messiness is the messiest, most dangerous kind of ideology. We need to come up with overall structures. And I think that Stowe and Stefana and Jemima all make credible, relevant, intelligent points. But we need a master. We need a Steve Jobs. We need someone in control. We need a God to put the whole thing together. Because if we don't, we're lost. Thank you.